concept of not using homegrown energy to support the UK is flawed, I think.
Hello, I'm energy reporter Matt Perry and I'm speaking today with Steve Swindell, the founder and chief executive officer of Xodus. Xodus was founded right here in Aberdeen 20 years ago at offshore Europe, and since then, like so many other companies in the northeast, it's grown into a truly global business that is influencing and inspiring progress right across the UK energy sector.
It started from us wanting to do something slightly different to what was being done before, and at that time subsea engineering and what we call topsides engineering and flow assurance was all being done by separate companies, and we thought there was optimization to be done by integrating those skills. So that was what we founded Xodus on. So it was really integrating skills to solve a problem and be more efficient. And that proved to work really well, and we've just steadily grown on that over the years, and now we have a much broader base of skills to integrate and to solve more complex problems. So that's the foundation of what Xodus is built on, but it's done so in quite a changing market.
And what has that foundation of technical expertise sort of allowed Xodus to, I guess, to grow? How has that affected the way Xodus operates?
That foundation of technical expertise allows us to give advice. So we're a consultancy. We advise our clients. They come to us. We hope they come to us because we have experts that can potentially solve some of their problems. And having a foundation of strong technical engineering and scientific expertise, mainly in the environmental space, gives us the ability to advise on saying, is a project viable? How much will it cost? What are the prospects of it being a success? And so on. So that, having a strong technical foundation is really important to be able to consult and give advice to clients. And that's really what we're here for.
Over the last 20 years, we've really seen a lot of change in that time, and particularly in the last few years, that pace of change has really quite picked up. I guess, what is Xodus's approach to maintaining that or building on that momentum in the energy transition?
What we've been doing is just changing with the market out there. So now, when we started out, we were very much an oil and gas focused company, and we still are. It's fair to say that right now our work is dominated by oil and gas projects, and we have a really strong oil and gas capability. But what we've done is increasingly spread that capability across the whole energy sector. So now we're advising on offshore wind, oil and gas, but also carbon capture, hydrogen, and increasingly on things like sustainable aviation fuels as well now. That's the next big thing that everybody's interested in. And so we've had to adapt and change with the market, but still hold true to our core capabilities.
And throughout this, rapid pace of change we're seeing in the energy transition, what have been some of the standouts for you, or some of the recent highlights that Xodus has been working on, or the things that you've seen happen in the sector?
Yeah, I guess one of the first highlights is really about our people. We've grown from 40 back 20 years ago. There were 40 of us, and we've now got over 600 people around the world. So that's a highlight, as we're seeing so many great people come into the company, and quite a few of them have been there for a long time. So it's great to see that people have stayed at Xodus and are still continuing to grow in that environment. So that's a real highlight. But more recently, I guess the highlight is the change that we're having to make with the changing market. And I guess we're now starting to take a much higher view of the energy market as a whole. So looking across the whole piece, rather than just looking at specific forms of energy, and that provides different insights. For example, one of the things that we've done recently in recent years is we were involved in more than 15 gigawatts of the 25 gigawatts that were leased out in the recent ScotWind leasing round. So that was really exciting, a real highlight for us. And then much more recently, we've also announced the acquisition of Daymark in the States, and they are another advisory consultancy, but they focus on power infrastructure and advisory and grid and transmission networks. And that's an area that we have identified as a gap for us in Xodus, because if we're going to be energy consultants across the whole piece, we have to understand about electricity and grids, and so we've added this to our mix. So that's really exciting. It's been exciting to see that come to fruition.
And I guess in the last week we've really seen demonstrated, the impact that uncertainty and changes in the world's economy can have. But in the UK, it's not just been the last week; it's been a period of uncertainty over the last several years. How important is policy and fiscal stability for companies like Xodus and for the clients that you work with in maintaining that momentum in the energy transition?
Yeah, very interesting. As you say, it has been a tumultuous week, you could call it that. But it's not just this week. The energy industry has been changing quite significantly over the last 2 or 3 years, quite dramatically. I find it quite interesting that if you look back 5 or 10 years ago, we all used to look at the oil price every day. Now, I don't think people look at the oil price every day. I think we're thinking about other things, and the price of oil isn't the only driver anymore. So the markets become more complex. So that's been a challenge for us, but it's also, as a consultancy, that's where you get your work from. When things are changing, that's when a consultant really can add value. So change is important. However, we do need stability in the market. With the current geopolitical uncertainty, I think we need to show the government that backing its own energy source is actually security. And what I mean by that is security. Security is energy security, and it's also economic security. And I think that's the bit that we really want to be able to, as advisors and consultants, we want to be able to show the government that that's the case. The concept of not using homegrown energy to support the UK is flawed, I think, because there's an assumption that renewable energy coming down the way is going to replace all the jobs that the oil and gas business that is supplying at the moment. In theory, that's possible, and it will happen eventually, but there's a gap in the assumptions. It won't happen as fast as the government is assuming right now, and therefore that's the sort of policy of neglecting the oil and gas business is creating risk.
And are you starting to see more of, I guess, an understanding or a convergence between the messaging from the side of the government and the side of the industry? Are you starting to see those two coming together increasingly?
There does appear to be a lot more conversation going on between the two, and that's actually key to the future of our energy industry, because whatever anybody says, whatever the rhetoric from the US or from other parts of the world, there's actually private money out there that is willing to invest in good projects. So governments and engineering needs to get together to show the potential for returns on that. So I think it's really important that consultancies like ours and the industry at large are engaging with government to help them understand the technical aspects of energy and energy security. So yeah, we are seeing more of that. And I have to sort of give a shout out to OUK. I think they've done a good job in actually promoting that discourse. So there does seem to be a lot more interaction than I've seen in the past.
And how important are those discussions towards, I guess, we've spoken a lot about the importance of retaining the skills that exist in particularly in the northeast of Scotland within the offshore energy sector. How important are those discussions with government and with industry to retaining that skills base in the UK?
Yeah, retaining the skills for us is really, really important. I think, but I come back to my previous comment about the fact that the skills can only be retained if we don't allow there to be a gap between the oil and gas and the renewables energy. I think there is too much of a gap right now in terms of the timing of the new jobs that are going to come down the line from the renewables industry. So that's the risk. But the principle of maintaining those skills is really important. So for us in Xodus, what we're focused on is protecting that skill base, which we use for most of our skills that they're based in the UK. A large proportion of our skills are based here. And so what we're doing is trying to make sure that we're accessing international work to bring back to the UK to maintain those skills in the UK and in Aberdeen. Because if we don't do that, they're going to go to where the work is happening. And we're already seeing examples of companies, but also individuals from our world are moving to the Middle East to go and pick up work there. And that would be That would be a sad thing if too many people moved that way. Yeah, naturally people are going to go and move and take other jobs in other parts of the world, but if we don't consciously do two things, one is win work internationally that can be done here, and two, protect the oil and gas industry for a bit longer in our environment, then we will lose skills, and that would be a tragedy.
And I guess looking ahead to the rest of the year, what opportunities do you see for Xodus to, I guess, contribute towards that goal, and how important are events like E-FWD to getting that industry collaboration going towards that goal?
Yeah, two parts to that question. I think first one is the things that we can do is I think we can be active and proactive in accessing those international markets. So we're focusing a lot on the Middle East at the moment, bringing work back to the UK. We're doing a lot of work in South America, in Africa and the Mediterranean, and a lot of that work is being done in the UK. So that's something proactive we can do. But having an organisation like E-FWD, particularly in this local area, is really important for understanding what others are doing and collaborating and feeding off each other's ideas. So yeah, it's a great forum to meet people who are facing the same challenges as us, but also get new ideas and fresh ideas in a relatively safe and open space. I think it's worth highlighting. And what other thing I do like about it is the way that you try to bring in the politician's view of life as well. So it's doing what I was talking about earlier, is bringing that government and engineering community together a bit more. So that's a positive thing.
I mean, Xodus does play a key advisory role within the energy sector. So I guess, looking at government, looking at the industry and the clients that you work with, what is Xodus seeing as really being, really quite important factors in this energy transition?
Yeah, it's probably worth saying that it's probably a little known fact that Xodus, we've actually advised on over 25 billion worth of deals in the last 5 or 6 years, and these are deals that other companies are making around pipeline infrastructure and M&A deals of companies coming together. And right now we're actively advising, technically and commercially, on a number of deals quite close to home where oil companies are joining up, and I think some of them have been announced and some of them are still coming down the road. But what that insight gives us is that there is definite interest still in the North Sea, and there's activity that people are wanting to focus on. So that gives us encouragement for the future of the activity that's in the North Sea. So really interesting to be on the inside of some of these deals where companies are looking to work together to maximize what we can out of the North Sea. So that's quite encouraging at the moment.
And what do you think is really driving that trend, as you say? Is it from a real interest in the kind of the future potential of the North Sea still?
Yes, I think there's a definite sense of uncertainty around, can new oil fields be developed, and the lack of a new license round and the reluctance to approve new licenses feeds into that. But what we're seeing oil companies say is, okay, we understand that, but we're going to focus on what we can control. We have these licenses and we have these assets. Let's maximize what we can out of that. And in so doing, they're trying to do that more efficiently, either through fiscal efficiency or through actual operational efficiency. They're finding they can do that better together. And but the driver for it is that they're definitely seeing more money to be made out of the oil and gas industry in the UK for a number of years to come.
I imagine that must be quite encouraging for a company like Xodus that's advising on these projects and these exciting things to be right at the centre, as you say, of everything that's going on.
Yeah, it is exciting, and sometimes we have to be, we can't share all the stuff that we know, but it's exciting to see that, and it gives us insight to be able to give advice to others. The other interesting factor for us is that decommissioning is still a big market for us as an industry in the North Sea to tackle, and that's another big capability of ours. We advise on decommissioning projects, and that's really interesting to see as well.
You've touched on obviously Xodus's experience in the ScotWind round and around floating wind decommissioning. I guess what are some of the other sectors that Xodus is really seeing as key opportunities at the moment?
Yeah, the other two that I should really mention is carbon capture and storage, or CCUS as the common acronym people use. but we are doing a lot of work on that, particularly in Asia Pacific. Our Australian business has got a lot of CCUS work going on, and we are working for some big Japanese clients. Japan is really interested in CCUS. It's getting stronger in the UK as well. There are a couple more projects that have been approved here in the UK. They need to be more, but as a trend, CCUS is a key investment area for many countries around the world, and we're able to advise and also do the engineering for that. So CCUS is a really important area. And the other one is hydrogen. We have got a good capability in hydrogen. There's a lot of uncertainty about where that market's going, but in certain parts of the world there are really good opportunities. So we've actually created a hydrogen project in Australia where we have brought together people, the demand and the supply side, and found a location for building a hydrogen plant that's going to be fed by renewable energy, wind turbines, and effectively have architected a project from nothing based around our knowledge of the sector, and we're quite excited to see where that one goes. We're asking the investment community for interest in that project at the moment, so watch the space.
And I guess what needs to be done to ensure that the UK can really capitalise on these opportunities in these emerging sectors like hydrogen, floating wind, CCS, to really build that knowledge base and export it, as you say, to regions all around the world, Australia, Japan and others that are looking to also develop these technologies? In
some ways the UK we are exporting our knowledge already to those sectors. So in all those cases that I talk about, hydrogen and CCS opportunities, it's the region that they're in has created the opportunity for it, but the skills we're using to help optimize and develop them are actually skills that are based in the UK. So in some sense we're exporting skills. In another sense it's really interesting to use that experience that other countries have and bring that back to the UK and say, okay, well, here are countries that have done a lot more CCUS than the UK has. There must be things we can learn. And we sit right in the middle of that. So it's a good opportunity for us to share that knowledge.
It's definitely one of the advantages of being a truly global company like Xodus is, and the approach that you take.
And it's one of the things that we try to have as a foundation inside the company as well, that we have a regional structure for managing our company, but the team is one team, and anybody can work on any project anywhere in the world at any time. And so we definitely share and spread our expertise. So that's a real advantage.
I guess, and talking about highlights as well, you've even been launching new sectors within the Xodus business, and one of which was Evolve, which you launched last year. I guess, what can you tell us about Evolve and how that's been travelling since you've launched it?
Yeah, that was quite an exciting event for us last year. Around about middle of last year we launched Evolve. Evolve is it's part of Xodus, but it's a brand that we've created to show a very specific expertise in feed and detailed design for offshore wind and potentially other renewable businesses, and that's to capitalize on our detailed knowledge of the front end of offshore wind developments, leasing, consenting, and the viability of wind projects, and then using our shareholders who are Subsea 7, they have expertise in actually installing wind farms, and we believe that by combining that expertise we can create a more efficient and more pure play focused engineering resource or capability for feed and detailed design for offshore wind. So that's the intent, and it's going well. We've won our first feed this year, and so we're quite excited about that. So there's traction there, and hope to be able to win more projects this year and grow that business from there.
And where are you seeing opportunities in that sector for Evolve? I know there's been a lot going on at the moment in the Celtic Sea with the 5th Crown Estate leasing round. I've also just come back from Italy where there's a lot of work going on in floating wind at the moment. Mm-hmm. I guess, where are you seeing globally the opportunities for Evolve?
They are certainly global. Initially we're focusing on Europe, and so we're seeing opportunities in the Celtic Sea, the Netherlands. In fact, that's where our first win has been. First large win is in the Netherlands. Also, but obviously the English rounds and also the Scotland rounds, there should be work coming out of there. So that's the main focus. But we're also seeing opportunities in Australia. Australia are also looking into offshore wind at the moment. They're doing a similar ScotWind process now. So that means in a couple of years' time there'll be more development down there. So those are two areas. I'm sure there are other parts of the world that are also doing it, but we're having to focus on those two areas to start with.
Coming back to, I guess, some of the highlights that we've seen in the last few years, but it hasn't just been the last few years that Xodus around. It has been 20 years, and coming up at Offshore Europe later this year, that will be the 20-year anniversary of Xodus being founded right here in Aberdeen. I guess what does that mean for you and the company to have that really big, momentous occasion coming up later this year?
Yeah, it's quite exciting, really, and hard to believe that it's 20 years already. But yeah, that it is true that we started in September 2005, and that first week of September is traditionally the week of Offshore Europe, and they happened to be in Offshore Europe in 2005. So that was a really key point in our sort of journey. Was we didn't have an office at that point, and we used Offshore Europe as our base for launching our brand. And so it's really fitting that this year, 20 years later, Offshore Europe will be a chance for us to celebrate 20 years. Yeah, it's quite exciting, and we're planning a few events for staff and clients, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, humbling and exciting at the same time. It's hard to believe that it's been 20 years, but it's been a really interesting 20 years. It's great to see that we've managed to export some of our knowledge outside of Aberdeen. We founded it in Aberdeen, not really with the knowledge or intent that we were going to go so far, but it's been great to see that it has gone so far, and we have begun to affect other parts of the world as well. So yeah, really pleased.
And looking ahead to the next 20 years.
Yes, although I'm getting older. But yeah, definitely looking forward to the next 20 years. It should be so different. I think the energy sector is going to be wildly different in 20 years' time.